The loan has been declined. Declined? But why? Your application didn't meet the criteria.
Unfortunately, your application has been declined. The criteria just weren't met.
The bank lobby smelled like lemon polish and cold money. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flattening everything. Faces, voices, dignity. Alicia Monroe stood at the counter with her folder pressed tight against her chest, knuckles pale, heart louder than the printer behind the glass. She had rehearsed this moment for weeks. Mortgage pre-approval, small business loan. Every document tabbed, highlighted, verified twice. Her cafe wasn't a dream, it was a plan. Second chance. A future she could touch. The loan officer didn't look at the papers. He looked at her. His eyes flicked once, hair, skin, name on the application, then slid away. His smile came late and wrong. "I'm sorry," he said, already shaking his head. "You don't meet our criteria." Alicia blinked. "You haven't reviewed anything yet." He sighed, the way people do when they're done listening. "We have internal assessments." Behind her, a white couple laughed softly, hands entwined, their loan packet half as thick as hers. The officer waved them forward without hesitation. Something hot and sharp lodged under Alicia's ribs. "I have excellent credit," she said quietly. "And collateral." The officer leaned closer, voice dropping. "Between us," he said, "you people usually struggle with follow-through." The word "you" landed like a slap. Alicia's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The room felt suddenly too big, too public, too silent. Then, a chair scraped behind her. Someone stood up. And the bank manager said, in a tone that froze the air, "Is there a problem here?" Alicia didn't turn around yet. She didn't know who it was. But she knew, something had just shifted. The bank lobby was designed to make people feel small without noticing. High ceilings, pale marble, the kind of quiet that wasn't peaceful, just controlled. Alicia Monroe stood at the counter and waited while the loan officer typed her name into a system she couldn't see. "Date of birth?" he asked, eyes still on the screen. "Alicia Marie Monroe. April 12, 1989. His fingers paused, then resumed. She adjusted the strap of her bag and glanced around. To her left, a young white man in a navy blazer joked with a teller about parking validation. To her right, an older woman clutched a withdrawal slip like it might disappear. The loan officer finally looked up. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "So," he said, drawing the word out, "you're applying for a small business loan." "Yes," Alicia replied. "I brought everything you requested." She slid the folder forward. It was thick, organized, color-coded. Business plan, credit reports, tax returns, letters of intent from suppliers. She'd stayed up 3 nights straight preparing it, triple-checking numbers because she always knew, mistakes were not forgiven equally. The loan officer didn't open the folder. He folded his hands instead. "I'm afraid we won't be able to move forward," he said lightly. Alicia blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "You don't meet our lending criteria." Her heart thumped once, hard. "Could you explain which part?" "My credit score is 782. He tilted his head. "There are multiple factors." "I understand," she said, keeping her voice steady. "That's why I'd like to review them." He leaned back in his chair. "It's not necessary." Something tightened behind her eyes. "With respect," Alicia said, "I've been pre-approved by 2 other institutions." "Regional banks have different risk tolerances," he replied. "Have you reviewed my application?" Just long enough." "Our system has." Behind her, someone cleared their throat impatiently. Alicia inhaled slowly. "I left my job as a hospitality manager last year. I've run teams, managed budgets larger than this loan. I have collateral." The loan officer's smile thinned. "Ms. Monroe," he said, lowering his voice, "small businesses like cafes fail at a very high rate. Not mine." He finally glanced down at the folder, touched it with 2 fingers, then pushed it back toward her. "Experience tells us otherwise." Her cheeks burned. What experience? His eyes flicked up again, quick, assessing. Applicants from your background, he said carefully, often underestimate operational discipline. There it was. The space around them seemed to open, as if the room itself were listening. My background, Alicia repeated. You mean my resume? He didn't answer directly. We have to protect the bank. Behind the counter to the right, another loan officer laughed warmly and waved a couple forward. The woman wore a linen dress. The man squeezed her hand. Their folder was thin. Alicia felt something crack, not loudly but deep. I would like this decision documented, she said. The loan officer's eyebrows rose. That won't change the outcome. I know, she said. But I'd like it anyway. He exhaled, irritated now. You're welcome to file a complaint. I plan to. Good luck with that, he muttered. The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. Alicia gathered her folder, hands shaking despite herself. She turned slightly, ready to leave, to swallow it like she always did, to be grateful no one had raised their voice. Then a chair scraped sharply against the floor. Someone stood up behind her. Actually, a man said calmly, I'd like to hear the explanation again. The loan officer stiffened. Sir, this doesn't involve. It does, the man interrupted, stepping closer. If you don't mind. The bank manager appeared at his side, sudden and alert. Is there an issue? The man smiled faintly. Possibly. Alicia stared at the counter, pulse roaring in her ears. For the first time since she walked in, the silence didn't belong to the bank. Alicia stayed still, fingers pressed flat against the edge of the counter, as if any sudden movement might erase the moment. The man who had spoken stood just behind her left shoulder, close enough that she could feel the heat from his presence, far enough that he wasn't crowding her. His voice had been calm, almost polite, but it had cut clean through the room. The loan officer straightened. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. This is a private financial matter. The man didn't move. He reached into his jacket slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a slim leather wallet. He opened it and held it up, angled so both the loan officer and the bank manager could see. My name is Evan Brooks, he said. I'm a regional compliance auditor. The air shifted. Alicia felt it the way you feel pressure change before a storm. The bank manager's expression changed first. Not fear, calculation. Mr. Brooks, she said, smoothing her blazer. I wasn't aware we had a visit scheduled. I'm aware, Evan replied. I like to observe natural conditions. The loan officer swallowed. This customer's application has already been reviewed. Evan's eyes flicked to Alicia for a fraction of a second. Not her clothes, not her skin, her face. He gave the smallest nod, as if asking permission. Alicia hesitated, then nodded back. Reviewed how? Evan asked. By our system, the loan officer said, repeating himself. Evan smiled slightly. That's interesting. Because according to policy, adverse lending decisions require documented human justification when credit thresholds are exceeded. The loan officer's jaw tightened. I'm sure you understand that not all criteria are disclosed. True, Evan said. But all criteria must be applied consistently. The bank manager stepped in. Perhaps we should move this conversation to my office. I'd prefer to keep it here, Evan replied. Transparency benefits everyone. A few customers nearby had stopped pretending not to listen. The white couple with the thin folder watched openly now, confusion creeping into their faces. Evan turned to Alicia. Ms. Monroe, would you mind telling me briefly what you were told? Her throat felt dry. She hadn't planned for this. She had planned for rejection, for disappointment, for going home and reworking numbers alone. Not for being asked to speak. They said I don't meet the criteria, she said carefully. But they didn't review my documents. And when you asked for clarification, Alicia looked at the loan officer. His face had gone pale beneath the fluorescent lights. He said applicants from my background often lack discipline, she said. The word background landed harder this time, exposed under scrutiny. Evan's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. Is that accurate? He asked the loan officer. That's not what I said, the man snapped. You're mischaracterizing. Evan tilted his head. Then please clarify. What did you mean by background? Silence. The bank manager cleared her throat. I'm sure this was a misunderstanding. We pride ourselves on inclusivity. Evan nodded. Then you won't mind if I review the decision. He turned back to Alicia. With your permission. Alicia's hands trembled. This man had power, real power, but she had learned the hard way that power often came with strings. Still, the humiliation from moments earlier burned fresh. Yes, she said. You can review it. Excellent. Evan reached for the folder. This time when he opened it, the sound of paper seemed loud. He flipped through quickly, efficiently. Credit score, he murmured. Collateral. Revenue projections. He glanced up. These are conservative estimates. They had to be, Alicia said. I didn't want. You did well, Evan said, quietly enough that only she could hear. The loan officer shifted. This is highly irregular. What's irregular, Evan replied, is denying a qualified applicant without review. The bank manager's smile tightened. Mr. Brooks, perhaps we should schedule a formal meeting. We will, Evan said. After I finish observing. He closed the folder and handed it back to Alicia. Ms. Monroe, I'm going to file an internal inquiry regarding this interaction. Her breath caught. What does that mean? It means the decision is paused, he said. And documented. The loan officer scoffed. This won't change anything. Evan looked at him then. Really looked. It already has, he said. Alicia felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Not relief. Not victory. Recognition. The bank manager clasped her hands together. Ms. Monroe, we apologize if you felt uncomfortable. Alicia met her gaze. I didn't feel uncomfortable, she said. I felt dismissed. Another silence. Heavier now. Evan stepped back. I'll be in touch, he said to Alicia. If you're willing. She nodded, unable to speak. As he walked toward the exit, the room seemed to exhale. The white couple looked away. The older woman lowered her eyes. The loan officer stared at his screen like it might save him. Alicia gathered her folder again. This time her hands were steady. When she turned to leave, the loan officer said nothing. For the first time that day, the quiet followed her out, not as a weight, but as a warning. The cafe across the street smelled like burnt espresso and cinnamon. Alicia sat at a small round table by the window, hands wrapped around a paper cup she hadn't tasted. Outside, people moved with the ease of those who hadn't just had their worth questioned in public. Evan Brooks arrived exactly on time. He didn't wear the jacket now. Just a pressed shirt, sleeves rolled slightly, watch plain and expensive without trying to be. He nodded to the barista, ordered black coffee, then sat across from Alicia like this was an interview she might pass. Thank you for agreeing to meet, he said. I didn't know if I should, Alicia replied. I still don't. That's fair. She studied his face, searching for something. Ego, savior complex, obligation. She found none of it. Only attention. You didn't have to step in, she said. I did, Evan replied. Once I heard the language. What language? He didn't answer immediately. Before I say anything else, he said, I need to be clear. I'm not here to promise outcomes, or protection, or comfort. Alicia's jaw tightened. Then what are you here for? Patterns. He opened a slim tablet and turned it toward her. No names, just columns. Over the last 6 years, he said, this branch has rejected black applicants at nearly 3 times the rate of white applicants with comparable profiles. Alicia stared. That can't be legal. It isn't, Evan said. But it's often invisible. Invisible to who? To people who aren't looking. She swallowed. So what happens now? That depends on you. Of course it does, she said bitterly. Evan met her gaze. You can walk away. Your application will likely be reconsidered quietly. Proved even. No one would blame you. And if I don't, then this becomes bigger than your loan. Alicia leaned back, the chair creaking beneath her. Bigger meant risk. Bigger meant retaliation. Bigger meant becoming a story instead of a person. You said patterns, she murmured. Not one bad loan officer. Yes, Evan said. Because the officer is replaceable. The pattern is not. She looked back at the tablet. Rows of data. Silent proof. They use coded language, Evan continued. Words like discipline, fit, instability, rarely race. Never explicitly. But everyone knows, Alicia said. Yes, he replied. And that's why it works. Her phone buzzed on the table. A text from her sister. How did the bank go? Alicia didn't respond. You're not the first, Evan said. There was a woman last year. Childcare center. Solid numbers. Rejected twice. What happened to her? She gave up. Alicia's chest tightened. And the others. A man with a logistics company. Approved only after bringing in a white partner. Another applicant took a settlement and signed an NDA. Alicia laughed softly without humor. So silence is the price of entry. Yes. The barista called Evan's name. He stood, retrieved his coffee, and sat again. If you proceed, Evan said, they'll push back. Early. Counts flagged. Credit reviews. Delays. You're saying they'll punish me. I'm saying systems defend themselves. Alicia stared out the window. A woman pushed a stroller past the bank doors. A man held them open for her. Small kindnesses layered over something rotten. My father used to say, Alicia said slowly, that racism doesn't need hate. It just needs patience. Evan nodded. He's right. Silence stretched between them. What do you need from me? Alicia asked. Your story, Evan replied. Documented. Words. Names. And then I file a formal compliance report. External review. Possibly regulators. Possibly meant probably not enough. And my loan? Alicia asked. Evan didn't dodge it. It will be delayed. She closed her eyes. Lease. The savings draining month by month. They want me tired, she whispered. Yes, Evan said. When she opened her eyes again, something had shifted. Not resolve. Resolve was too clean. This was heavier. My mother cleaned offices in buildings like that bank, Alicia said. She used to say the floors were always polished, no matter what happened upstairs. Evan listened. I don't want a favor, Alicia continued. I want it on record. I want them to stop pretending. That's the hardest ask, Evan said. She nodded. I know. He slid a consent form across the table. No pressure. No flourish. Read it, he said. Take your time. Alicia read every line. Her hand shook when she signed. Evan folded the paper carefully. I'll be in touch. As he stood to leave, Alicia said, Why do you do this? He paused. Because I used to believe neutrality was fairness. And now I know better. He left her there with the cooling coffee and the weight of what she'd just agreed to. Across the street, the bank doors opened and closed, swallowing people whole. Alicia watched them, already knowing nothing inside that building would be quiet again. The first sign came 3 days later, quiet as dust settling. Alicia logged into her bank app while waiting in line at the grocery store. The screen loaded, froze, then refreshed with a red banner she'd never seen before. Account under review. Limited activity temporarily restricted. Her pulse spiked. She tapped the message. This action was triggered by a routine security assessment. Routine. The word felt rehearsed. She tried to transfer money to her savings. Denied. Tried again. Denied. At the checkout, The cashier scanned her items and smiled. That'll be $46.20. Alicia swiped her card. Declined. I'm sorry, the cashier said, already embarrassed for her. Do you have another form of payment? Heat crept up Alicia's neck. She handed over cash with hands that didn't shake until she reached the car. By the time she got home, there were 3 missed calls from an unfamiliar number and 1 voicemail from her landlord. Hey Alicia, his voice said, falsely cheerful. Just wanted to touch base about the lease. Give me a call when you can. She sat on the edge of the couch, phone pressed to her ear, listening to the silence after the beep. When Evan called later that night, she answered on the first ring. It started, she said before he could speak. Yes, Evan replied. No surprise. No apology. I was notified. Notified by who? By the bank's legal department. Her laugh was sharp. They didn't notify me. They wouldn't, Evan said. That would imply choice. The next morning, Alicia went to the branch in person. The same marble. The same hum. A different loan officer met her this time. A woman with a tight bun and a professional smile. Your account is under review, the woman said, eyes flicking to the screen. It's temporary. For what? Enhanced due diligence. Alicia leaned forward. On what basis? The woman's smile didn't change. We can't disclose that. You can't or you won't. The woman's fingers paused over the keyboard. Ms. Monroe, I'm trying to help you. Alicia straightened. Then unlock my account. I don't have that authority. Who does? The woman hesitated, then glanced toward a frosted glass office. Ask him, Alicia said quietly. The woman swallowed. He's unavailable. Course he was. When Alicia left, she didn't slam the door. She didn't raise her voice. She walked out like someone who understood exactly what was being done to her. At home, her email inbox waited like a trap. Subject: Employment verification request subject. Rental reference inquiry subject. Credit activity alert. They weren't hiding it anymore. Her former employer called that afternoon. Just a routine check, her old supervisor said awkwardly. They asked if you left on good terms. And what did you say? Alicia asked. That you were excellent, the woman replied quickly. Which you were. Alicia thanked her and hung up. By evening, Evan was at her apartment, sitting at the small kitchen table with a legal pad spread out between them. Everything, he said. Write down everything. Talk. He wrote. Phrases. Every routine measure documented until the word lost meaning. They want me to blink, Alicia said. They want me to panic and accept whatever they offer. Yes, Evan replied. And they want to exhaust you. I'm already tired. He looked up. You don't have to be heroic. She pressed her palms flat against the table. I don't feel heroic. I feel hunted. That's by design. There was a knock at the door. Alicia froze. Evan stood first. I've got it. He opened the door to a courier holding a thin envelope. Signature required. Alicia signed. Her name looked strange, like it belonged to someone else. Inside the envelope was a letter on firm letterhead. We regret to inform you that due to recent risk reassessments, your loan application is formally denied. This decision is final. No explanation. No apology. Evan exhaled slowly. They're escalating. Good, Alicia said. So am I. He studied her face. Are you sure? She nodded. If I back out now, they'll do this to someone else. Quietly, Evan closed the pad. Then the next step is formal. What does that mean? External regulators, he said. And once that happens, they'll try to settle. Alicia imagined the offer. Approval with silence attached. Relief packaged as obedience. I won't sign, she said. I know. Night fell heavy and close. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far enough away to be background noise. Do you ever get scared? Alicia asked. Evan didn't pretend. Yes. Then why keep doing this? He met her eyes. Because fear doesn't disappear when you stay quiet. It just changes address. Alicia nodded. She understood that. After he left, she sat alone in the dark, phone glowing in her hand. Another message from her sister blinked on the screen. Please call me. Alicia typed back slowly. I will. I'm just not done yet. She set the phone down and stared at the ceiling, listening to her own breath. The system had made its move. So had she. And somewhere, behind glass and policy and language carefully scrubbed of blame, people were watching to see which of them would fold first. The conference room smelled faintly of old carpet and burnt coffee. Alicia sat at the long table with her hands folded, a recorder placed carefully between her and the two attorneys across from her. Evan sat to her left, not touching anything, as if even that might influence the room. State your name for the record, the woman attorney said. Alicia Marie Monroe. And you understand this statement may become part of a regulatory investigation. Yes. The man beside the woman adjusted his glasses. You can stop at any time. Alicia nodded. She didn't trust the kindness in his voice, but she appreciated the option. Let's begin with the date of your initial loan application. Alicia took a breath. March 3rd. And the branch. She named it. The words felt heavier now, anchored to paper and consequence. As she spoke, the room changed shape around her. It became the bank lobby again, the hum of lights, the smooth counter, the loan officer's smile. She repeated his words exactly as she remembered them. Background, discipline, experience tells us otherwise. The attorneys exchanged a look but didn't interrupt. Did you ask for clarification? The woman asked. Yes. And what was the response? That it wasn't necessary. Evan scribbled notes, steady and precise. Were other applicants present? The man asked. Yes. A white couple. They were invited forward while I was still standing there. How did that make you feel? The woman asked. Alicia hesitated. She had learned that feelings were often treated like weaknesses in rooms like this. It made me feel processed, she said finally. Like a category, not a person. The woman nodded once, neutral. They moved on to the retaliation, the account restrictions, the landlord call, the employment verification requests. Alicia laid them out in sequence, each incident alone explainable, together unmistakable. Did anyone explicitly threaten you? The man asked. No. Did anyone mention race? No. Silence followed. Then the woman spoke. That's often how these cases present. After 2 hours they stopped the recorder. You did well, the woman said. We'll be in touch. When Alicia stood, her legs felt weak, as if she'd been bracing against something invisible. Outside the sun was too bright. Evan walked with her down the steps. You okay? He asked. I don't know, she replied. I feel like I just handed myself over. You gave your account, Evan said. That's different. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't family. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello. Ms. Monroe, a man said smoothly. This is Daniel Reeves from First Continental Bank. Her stomach dropped. I understand you've had some concerns, he continued. We'd like to resolve this amicably. Evan watched her face tighten. Resolve how? Alicia asked. We're prepared to approve your loan immediately, Reeves said. With favorable terms. Alicia closed her eyes. And in return, she asked. Was barely there. We'd ask for discretion. Evan shook his head slowly. No, Alicia said. Put it in writing. Reeves chuckled lightly. There's no need for that. Then there's no need for this conversation, Alicia replied and hung up. Her hands trembled now. Not fear, anger held too tightly. That was fast, Evan said. They're scared, Alicia replied. Not of me. Of paper. That evening the story leaked. It didn't break loudly. No headlines. Just a local business blog, then a regional outlet. Black entrepreneur alleges discriminatory lending practices at major bank. Alicia read the article 3 times, heart pounding. Her name was there. Her face. The comments came quickly. Supportive. Skeptical. Cruel. Why didn't she just go somewhere else? Sounds like sour grapes. Banks aren't charities. She shut the laptop. Her sister called again. Alicia answered this time. Why didn't you tell me? Her sister demanded, voice shaking. I didn't want you worried. I'm worried anyway. They talked late into the night. About their parents. About bills. About how tired it was to always have to explain. The next day, the bank issued a statement. First Continental Bank is committed to diversity and inclusion. We categorically deny any allegations of discriminatory practices. Alicia read it on her phone while sitting in her car, parked outside the empty storefront that was supposed to be her cafe. Dust coated the windows. A for lease sign leaned crookedly inside. Evan joined her, leaning against the hood. This is where it gets louder. I didn't ask for loud, Alicia said. I know. She stared at the space, imagining tables, mugs, people laughing. Imagining what was slipping further away with every delay. Do you regret it? Evan asked gently. She thought of the bank lobby. The word you. The quiet compliance they'd expected. No, she said. But I'm grieving something. He nodded. That doesn't mean you're losing. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. This time from someone she didn't know. Thank you for speaking up. They did this to my mother too. Alicia stared at the screen, throat tight. She wasn't alone anymore. That realization didn't make it easier, but it made it real. And once something was real, it could no longer be buried under policy language and polite smiles. The record existed now. And it was growing. The noise came in waves. Alicia learned to recognize the rhythm of it. Alerts first, then calls, then silence that wasn't rest but reload. Her phone buzzed with messages she didn't open. Her email filled with invitations that weren't invitations at all. Would you be willing to comment? Can you verify this quote? Do you have documentation? She sat at her kitchen table with the blinds half closed, coffee gone cold, watching dust float in a stripe of afternoon light. The apartment felt smaller every day, as if attention itself took up space. Her landlord called again. This situation, he began, voice cautious now, has made me uneasy. About what? Alicia asked. About risk. She laughed short and sharp. You're raising my rent because a bank retaliated against me. I'm just reassessing, he said quickly. Market conditions. Of course you are. After she hung up, she pressed her forehead to the table and counted to 10. Then 20. Then she stood up and opened the window, breathing in the city like medicine that burned before it healed. Evan checked in daily. Never more than a few minutes unless she asked. They're testing your limits, he said one evening. Seeing what you'll trade for quiet. What do they think I want? Alicia snapped. Relief, Evan replied. And they're not wrong. That night the offer came formally. A courier delivered a thick envelope, heavier than the others. Inside, loan approval. Better terms than she'd asked for. Lower interest. Grace period. And at the bottom, clean, precise. An agreement. Non-disclosure. No admission of wrongdoing. No future claims. Alicia read it twice. 3 times. Her hands shook as she called Evan. They're offering me everything, she said. Yes, he replied. Except the truth. If I sign this, she said slowly, I can open the cafe. Yes. And if I don't, then you keep fighting. She closed her eyes. She could see the cafe so clearly it hurt. Warm wood. Plants in the windows. A chalkboard menu she'd already designed. I'm so tired, she whispered. I know. Silence stretched between them. Then Evan spoke carefully. Whatever you choose, he said, is justified. That was the hardest part. No villain speech. No pressure. His choice. Alicia called her sister. I can make it stop, Alicia said. Right now. Her sister exhaled. And what does it cost? My voice. Another pause. Then, I can't tell you what to do. But I don't want you disappearing. Alicia stared at the agreement, pen resting beside it like a dare. I won't, she said finally. I can't. The next morning, she declined the offer in writing. The response was immediate. The bank's tone changed. Harper. Defensive. Their attorneys requested additional documentation, then requested it again, claiming files hadn't transferred. Meetings were scheduled, cancelled, rescheduled. Her savings dipped below the line she'd promised herself she wouldn't cross. Online, the story mutated. Strangers dissected her finances, her past jobs, her face. She should be grateful. Why is she making it about race? Play the victim, get attention. Alicia stopped reading comments after someone messaged her mother's old address. That night, she dreamed of the bank lobby. Empty this time, lights buzzing louder than before. She woke to Evan's call. Discovery is moving forward, he said. Internal emails are being subpoenaed. Is that good? She asked. It's dangerous, he replied. For them. Her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. Ms. Monroe, a man said briskly. This is First Continental's counsel. We strongly advise you to reconsider our previous offer. I did, Alicia replied. And I declined. This path will be costly. It already is. You risk losing everything. Alicia's voice didn't waver. I already lost something when I walked into your bank. After she hung up, her hands finally did shake. She let them. She let herself cry, quietly, fiercely, until the tears ran dry. 2 days later, a reporter showed up outside her building. I won't comment, Alicia said through the intercom. Off the record, the reporter tried. There is no off the record, Alicia replied. Evan met her later that evening with takeout containers and tired eyes. They found something, he said. What? A phrase, he replied. Used repeatedly in internal emails. Alicia waited. High-risk demographic clustering. She swallowed. That's us. Yes. They never said race. They didn't have to. Alicia leaned back against the counter. Will it be enough? It will expose intent, Evan said. Which is rare. She nodded. Exposure didn't erase damage. It didn't refill her account or restore her peace. But it cracked something open. That night, she walked past the empty storefront again. The for lease sign was still there, sun-faded now. She pressed her palm against the glass. I'm still coming, she whispered. Just not the way I planned. Behind her, the city moved on. Cars, laughter, sirens, indifferent and alive. Alicia stood there until the sky darkened, carrying the cost of being right like a weight she hadn't chosen, but refused to put down. And somewhere inside the system that had counted on her exhaustion, something began to tremble. Not from anger, but from proof. The emails arrived in batches, redacted blocks stacked like missing teeth across the screen. Alicia sat beside Evan in a borrowed office, the hum of an ancient air conditioner filling the pauses between words neither of them wanted to say aloud. Read this one, Evan said, turning the monitor slightly. Alicia leaned in. Subject: Q2 Lending Adjustments Recommendation. Tighten exposure in high-risk demographic clustering. Emphasize discretionary review. She felt the phrase settle into her bones. Not race. Never race. A euphemism clean enough to pass inspection, dirty enough to do its work. How many times does it appear? She asked. Evan scrolled. 37. And who wrote them? Senior management, he replied. Multiple departments. Alicia closed her eyes. She imagined the room where those words were typed. Glass walls, catered lunches, confident hands that never shook. People who would swear they were fair. They built a language, she said. So they never had to hear themselves. Yes. Across the hall voices rose. Lawyers. Bank counsel arguing about scope, about relevance, about context. The door remained closed, but the tension bled through the walls. Evan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then at Alicia. They want to meet. Who? The executives. Her stomach tightened. Together. Yes. When? Now. The boardroom was larger than the bank lobby, colder in a different way. A long table. Bottled water untouched. Framed statements about integrity and trust lining the walls. 3 executives sat on one side. Evan and Alicia on the other. The man in the center spoke first. Ms. Monroe, we regret that this process has become adversarial. Alicia met his gaze. It became adversarial when I was denied without review. We dispute that characterization, the woman beside him said. Evan slid a printed email across the table. Then explain this. Silence. The third executive cleared his throat. Those terms are industry standard. Industry standard discrimination, Alicia said quietly. The man's jaw tightened. We take offense at that. You should, she replied. They pivoted quickly. Offering mediation, policy reviews, diversity initiatives. Words stacked like sandbags against a flood. Your experience, the woman said, does not reflect our values. Alicia leaned forward. Then why does it reflect your data? That stopped them. Evan stood. We're prepared to proceed. The meeting ended without handshakes. Outside, Alicia exhaled shakily. They looked at me like I was a problem. They look at problems like that, Evan said. Until they become liabilities. 2 weeks later, the documents went public. A national outlet ran the headline. Internal emails reveal coded bias in major banks' lending practices. Alicia watched the story spread like a spark in dry grass. Commentators dissected phrases. Experts explained patterns. Former employees came forward. Her phone rang non-stop. One voicemail stood out. This is Karen Lewis, the voice said. I worked there for 12 years. I saw what they did. I'm ready to talk. Alicia forwarded it to Evan without listening twice. The loan officer from the lobby was placed on leave. The bank framed it as accountability. Alicia recognized it as insulation. They're sacrificing him, she said. Yes, Evan replied. But it won't be enough. At night, Alicia slept in fragments. Dreams stitched together boardrooms and counters and empty cafes. She woke to headlines and new messages. Some grateful, some furious. One email arrived without subject. They did this to my father. Thank you for staying. She stared at it for a long time. Another meeting followed, this time with regulators. Less polished. More direct. Intent matters, one official said. But so does impact. Alicia spoke when asked. No speeches. No metaphors. Just facts. When it was over, Evan walked her to the elevator. You've changed the terrain, he said. I didn't mean to, she replied. Change rarely asks permission. The bank's stock dipped. Executives issued apologies that never named harm. The phrase high-risk demographic clustering trended for a day, then disappeared beneath newer outrages. Alicia sat alone in her apartment that evening, scrolling through photos of the cafe space. Her savings were thin. Her lease still unsigned. She wondered what justice looked like when it arrived late and partial. Her phone rang. Ms. Monroe, a woman said. This is the state regulator's office. We've concluded our preliminary review. Alicia's breath caught. And we're recommending penalties and oversight. She closed her eyes. Thank you. After the call, she didn't celebrate. She sat quietly, letting the weight shift. Not lift, just redistribute. Evan texted, you did this. He typed back, we did. Outside, the city moved, indifferent as ever. Inside the system that had counted on her silence, consequences took root. Not dramatic, not complete, but real. Alicia stood at her window, watching the lights come on across the street. Discovery hadn't saved her dream, but it had exposed the lie that tried to bury it. And that, she knew, would matter, long after the emails were archived and the apologies forgotten. The morning sunlight in the city felt sharper than usual, as if it had learned to cut through the polished facades of power. Alicia walked past the bank that had tried to erase her, past the lobby where her dreams had been stalled, and noticed the Help Wanted sign now taped crookedly on the front door. Inside, the hum of fluorescent lights was gone. The space seemed smaller, stripped of authority. News outlets ran the story in sequence. First, a report on the leaked internal emails. Then regulatory notices. Then short bulletins about resignations. The headlines were sparse but unmistakable. Major bank executives resign amid lending investigation. Internal emails reveal pattern of coded discrimination. First Continental faces oversight and fines. Alicia read them in the cafe across the street, the steam of a latte rising between her fingers. Her thoughts a knot of satisfaction and exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. Evan's name lit the screen. She answered immediately. "They've started issuing notices," he said. "The executives. The department heads." "How many?" she asked. "3 so far. 1 loan officer suspended indefinitely. And the bank has agreed to a formal audit." Alicia exhaled slowly. Relief. Maybe. Something like it. But it carried a bitter edge. "They're acting like this is a story about heroes and villains," she said, voice low. "It's not." Evan didn't argue. "It's about cause and effect. Proof matters more than virtue." She sipped the latte. The heat burned a little, the bitterness grounding her. "The media, they'll move on soon. People will forget." "Not entirely," Evan said. "Not the ones who saw it firsthand. And not the people who will learn from this." Her gaze drifted to the empty storefront across the street. Dust-coated windows, a crooked for lease sign. She imagined tables, chairs, sunlight on counter edges, the scent of freshly baked croissants. The phone rang again. She glanced at the number. Unfamiliar. "Ms. Monroe," said a woman's voice. "This is Linda Thompson, former senior analyst at the bank. I read the reports. I want to help." Alicia's pulse quickened. "Thank you. We'll talk soon." She hung up and leaned back, closing her eyes. The fallout wasn't complete. It wouldn't be. Systems like this rarely collapsed fully. But cracks had appeared, visible and undeniable. At the apartment later, Alicia found herself reviewing emails from the regulators. They outlined specific fines, oversight measures, and mandatory reporting. The numbers were enough to make a significant impact on the bank's operations. She reread the terms, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of having survived the storm long enough to see evidence of consequence. Even the bank's internal culture had shifted. Whispered apologies, compliance workshops, and HR memos began to circulate. The language of discrimination, the coded words, was now being replaced by more neutral phrasing. Systems began adjusting under scrutiny. Alicia's phone buzzed again. This time it was her sister. "Have you eaten?" she asked. "Coffee," Alicia replied. "I've been busy reading." Her sister sighed. Busy changing the world, apparently. Alicia laughed softly, a sound that carried both relief and exhaustion. Something like that. The following week, Alicia received a letter from the bank. Not an apology, not an offer. A formal acknowledgement of procedural failure and confirmation of their commitment to the regulator's audit. She read it twice. The words were sterile, but they were truth. Later, she visited the loan officer who had dismissed her in the lobby months ago. His office was smaller, quieter. His expression was tight. "I'm sorry," he said haltingly. You followed orders," Alicia interrupted softly. "And now you've learned what they cost." He nodded, looking down at the desk. I didn't realize." "You didn't have to," she said. "Just remember it." She left the office without waiting for further words, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hallways. The weight of the moment settled differently than she expected. No satisfaction, no revenge, just acknowledgement, reality. Her cafe lease finally cleared. The space was smaller than she'd dreamed, but it was hers. She walked through the empty room, measuring tables with her eyes, imagining the chatter, the clatter of cups, the aroma of coffee beans roasting just beyond the back room. She touched the walls, imagining the light in the morning, the warmth in the evening. Evan arrived that afternoon. He didn't bring words of congratulations, only a quiet presence. Together, they stood in the center of the room, surveying the possibilities. "They'll rebuild," Alicia said. "They always do," Evan replied. "But not without a lesson learned." She nodded. "And we'll rebuild too." For the first time in months, Alicia allowed herself to breathe fully. The fallout had been costly, emotionally, financially, mentally, but it was real. Consequences had arrived, slow, uneven, imperfect, but undeniable. Outside, the city continued to hum. Cars, sirens, laughter, the indifferent rhythm of life. But inside, in this reclaimed space, something new began to grow, a future shaped not by fear, but by courage. Alicia looked at the empty counter, then back at Evan. "It's not perfect," she said. "No," he agreed. "But it's ours." The afternoon sun poured through the front windows, illuminating dust motes like tiny sparks. Alicia smiled faintly, knowing that while the cost of being right had been high, the price of silence would have been far higher. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a quiet certainty. Even systems built to oppress could bend, if enough weight was applied in the right way. The bank had faltered. The abusers had faced consequences. The truth had been exposed. And Alicia Monroe, tired, scarred, resilient, was finally ready to step forward into what she had been fighting for all along. The morning light filtered through the dusty windows of the small cafe space, painting warm streaks across the bare wooden floor. Alicia Monroe stepped inside. Her hands pressed against the counter where a barista station would one day sit. She let her fingers linger over the wood, imagining the weight of cups, the smooth curve of ceramic, the hum of a grinder in the background. It was smaller than she had hoped, far smaller. But it was hers. Every scar in the walls, every uneven seam in the floorboards, felt like a marker of survival, not failure. Boxes were stacked in one corner. Tables, chairs, coffee equipment. The smell of packing tape still clung to them. She unsealed one and ran her hand over the smooth surface of a countertop she had chosen with care. Each piece of furniture, each tool was a statement. She would build what she dreamed on her terms. Evan Brooks stood at the doorway, hands in his pockets, silent. He didn't need to ask if she was ready. He only watched. "I can't believe it's finally happening," Alicia said softly, almost to herself. "You've earned this," Evan replied. "Not because of anyone's approval, but because you refuse to let silence define you." She smiled faintly. "It doesn't feel like victory. It feels fragile." "It's supposed to," he said. "Fragility keeps us alert, keeps us alive. But it's yours. You built it from the pieces they tried to take from you." Her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from her sister. "I'm proud of you. Be careful but proud." Alicia typed back quickly, fingers shaking slightly. "I'm here. It's happening." The next few weeks were chaos. Contractors arrived early, measuring and drilling, installing plumbing and electrical lines. Alicia was there every morning, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back. She oversaw deliveries, corrected mistakes, and negotiated minor disputes. Each decision was small, but it mattered. She discovered a patience she hadn't known she possessed, and a stubbornness that would not bend. Despite exhaustion, she reveled in the normalcy of work. The smell of fresh paint, the buzz of fluorescent lights during inspections, the feel of fine espresso beans grinding between her fingers, it grounded her. For the first time in months, she felt like she was doing something tangible, not just resisting an invisible weight. Then came the soft test of public perception. She posted a small announcement on social media, cautious and understated. "Alicia Monroe's Cafe, coming soon." Responses trickled in. Supportive messages, curious questions, and a few skeptical comments questioning her capability. She ignored the last, replying only to the encouragement. One afternoon, she watched a man from the building across the street taking photos of her empty storefront. She felt a familiar tension, the old vigilance kicking in. But when Evan leaned beside her, he whispered, "Let them watch. They can't touch this. Inside, the walls were painted a warm cream, the floors polished to a golden shine. She arranged chairs, measured space for tables, and carefully positioned a small shelf of pastries and coffee tools. It was meticulous work, but it gave her control she had been denied for so long. During a quiet moment, Alicia sat on a stool at the counter, surveying the empty room. "It's funny," she said. "I fought so hard to open this, and now, it feels like just the beginning." Evan smiled. "Beginnings are always quieter than the fight to get there." "I thought I'd feel more triumphant," Alicia admitted. "Like the end of a war." "You've won the war," he said gently. "But now comes the work of living in peace with the victory." She let the words sink in. The bank, the loan officer, the system, they had tried to make her small, make her invisible. But here in this space she was seen. Every decision she made, every detail she arranged, was a mark of her presence. The opening day arrived quietly. Friends and family trickled in first, offering hugs and congratulations. The cafe smelled faintly of roasted beans and freshly baked pastries. Laughter and chatter filled the room, small but persistent, pushing back against months of silence and tension. Alicia moved among them, directing, adjusting, smiling. She paused at the counter, watching a small boy take his first sip of hot chocolate, eyes wide with delight. A woman smiled at her from the corner, pointing out her favorite pastries. Alicia's chest tightened. This, the faces, the reactions, the small human connections, was what she had been fighting for all along. When Evan joined her again, he rested a hand on the counter near hers. "You did this," he said. "Not because the system approved, but because you refused to bow to it." Alicia looked around. Every chair, every table, every smile, it was all real. "It's still fragile," she said. "Fragile," Evan agreed, "but alive." The city outside moved with its usual indifference. Traffic, sirens, voices, lights, all unchanged. But inside something had shifted. A small corner of the world had been claimed, not with loud declarations or revenge, but with steady hands and unyielding persistence. Alicia Monroe stood behind her counter, coffee cup in hand, eyes bright, heart steady. The fight was far from over. There would always be obstacles, challenges, reminders of the world she had resisted. But this room, this space, this life she was building, it was hers. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of growth, resilience, and quiet triumph. She smiled, a real one, and whispered almost to herself, "We build what they can't take away." The espresso machine hissed, the grinder whirred, and the first customers of the day settled in, unaware of the battles that had led here. Alicia filled a cup, poured it slowly, and placed it on the counter. She had come through fire, and now she was building warmth. The cafe, small, imperfect, fragile, was alive. And so was she.